Welcome to New Mommy at 40, a honest, informative, and non-judgmental podcast for those navigating to and through parenthood in their 40s. And I'm your host, Victoria Latour Dunker, and I'm so glad you're here. Welcome. Today's episode had me fighting back tears from sheer fear to ultimately pure joy and happiness for our next guest. Jenese Raspberry, a mother of two, sits with us today to share her delivery story at age 38 of her second child, a beautiful and healthy now 6-year-old girl. It is a story of faith, community, and surrender that also serves as a look into the appalling and unacceptable rise of maternal mortality rates, particularly of Black and brown women in the United States. She's a miracle, and I can't wait for you to meet her. But before we get into it, I need you to do something for me. Press that follow, subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching this so you don't miss a single episode. And follow us at New Mommy at 40. That's New Mommy and the number 40 wherever you do your social media. Thank you very much in advance and enjoy this episode. All right, hit it. It didn't happen in my 20s. Who cares? Now I've got all this fancy wisdom to share. Hey, I've got this baby, you're getting the best of me, 'cause I'm a new mommy at 40. I'm so thrilled to have the guest that we have today. She came to me via another friend of ours that we share mutually. And in this motherhood journey, it's always so nice to meet other moms through each other. And she shared her story with me, our mutual friend, because she felt it was really important to honor her friend, Jenese, and what she went through. And I think both of our goals is to share her story as a cautionary tale for other mothers to be, and also specifically Black mothers in this country. So I'd like to welcome Jenese Raspberry. She is a high school, middle school teacher and mom of two. And it's so nice to have you today, Jenese.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yeah, when Deneen told me your story, she was like, "Oh, you got to meet my friend." And she gave me a little bit and I thought, "Oh my goodness, like I need to give her the floor to share this tale." And I was wondering if it's one of those things that you are okay revisiting, because it was really, really difficult. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about when you first became a mom. So you became a mom when you were 20, was it 26?
So, yes, 26 with my son, my first child. So that during like that pregnancy and that birth was really like no problem at all per se. Um, I mean, so much so the actual birth itself went so quickly. It was I almost didn't even feel it. I mean, I had the epidural, but I mean, I just saw his head crowning in like a mirror across from me, and that I just couldn't believe it because it wasn't like that typical, screaming and so much pain. Um, so that went smoothly. That was fine. I guess when I had my baby girl, of course, that was the most traumatic for me, and that was in May. I had her May 26, 2016. Um,
Okay. And
yeah.
how old were you then, Jenese?
Then I was 38. I had her May, and I turned 39 that September.
Okay.
So I
And
was
well, I wanted to ask you, when going from being a first time mom when you were 26 and now becoming pregnant, were there any concerns that you had in terms of
like my
being now an
age.
advanced maternal age? Did they
Yeah.
kind of like make you feel a certain way about that, or
You
nah?
know, no, yeah, no, I guess because for the most part, I guess like health wise, I was pretty much okay. I didn't have like any health issues. Like I wasn't like diabetic or pre-diabetic, or I wasn't like my weight was fine. I didn't have like any health concerns on that end. Um, and being a little older, I mean, like oddly enough, I guess these days some women are older having babies, so that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really. And even when I spoke to my one of my doctors afterward, like everyone would say that considering what happened to me, they were like age was not the issue. Because I guess some women are older these days. So I was still in my 30s. They're like, no, that wasn't a big deal. Um,
Good.
yeah,
Yeah, I wanted to highlight that so that when we do hear the tale, and it's
yeah,
good to hear that your doctors were also on board with this isn't an age thing
right, right.
necessarily. This
No,
this can happen at any time.
yeah,
Um and you also didn't go in with any preconceived notions of this is going to be hard or anything.
no,
Now, did
no.
you No, you
It,
seem
it's
like that
it's
kind
funny.
of, listen, I'm
It,
going in and I'm winning.
yeah, because I guess it was quite the opposite considering how it went for my son. I figured,
Right.
no big deal because it was just so that way with him. I actually nursed him, so I was looking
Yeah.
forward to doing that with my baby girl. Um, so I guess I went in quite the opposite. I was like, okay, no big deal because that's the way it was when I had him. Um, so that's kind of how I figured it would be when I had her. I will say that one thing that I had done differently, I think, yeah, I had the epidural with him and I had it with her too. But what I had done with her, I had the labor induced, and I didn't do that with him. And even just having the labor induced was kind of like on a whim. I didn't necessarily plan to do that.
Mhm.
My doctor mentioned it during one of the visits, kind of like I don't know. Well, I don't know if I asked her about it or if she mentioned it to me, but even that, like other doctors would say, that wasn't such a big deal. Having an epidural and having the labor induced too, like with modern medicine, they were like, no, that wasn't the issue either, because women do that. They do that with some women, but that was what was different with me. And I would say ultimately that I did it out of quite selfish reasons,
Mm.
because I figured like I wanted to make my family reunion, which was at the end of June.
Okay.
So, but it was kind of funny because I kind of wanted to have her like May 30th. Once I found out that I was due in May, I was like, oh, can we do it for like May 30? Because I like this whole 5:30 thing, like five, like a time frame. Yeah, it's kind of my head the way I think sometimes. So no, the doctor was like, well, it kind of went according to her schedule, and she's like, well, she's free. She was available May 26th. So I said, okay, fine. And so that's pretty much why she was born on May 26th. It wasn't that I had just gone into labor that day. That part was planned because the labor was induced. Um, so so I had her May 26th, and even though I had a due date around that time, like I said, I wanted to make the family reunion. That's why I went ahead and chose to have it induced, because I figured if she's a month old, then I can go ahead and travel and and be with my family during that time. So I figured it wouldn't be a big deal. And that was like one of the reasons why I went ahead and chose to have it induced. But that wasn't I was really not thinking that way before
Right. Well,
before it
it
was
sounds
part
like
of my
for
mission.
your medical staff to even agree to that means that it wasn't too far off from the due date
Yeah.
anyway, right?
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily, so what you're saying, it wasn't really a medical reason to
Oh
induce.
yeah.
It was just
No.
more so of
Yeah.
your scheduling. But most medical staff, if anyone's listening to this that's currently pregnant, most medical staff will not agree to
Right.
an induced um, labor if the due date is that far away. So it
Right.
it must have
Right.
all been a little bit within a week or two or so that
Right.
they may have felt that it was
Right.
safe to do that for you.
Right. And honestly, I
Um,
think like I oh no, I just wanted to make it a point because I don't know if that is an issue, and not to try to, play the race card per se, but when I had my son, um, she was like pretty much youngish, black doctor, female doctor. And it's funny because I kind of joked with her, like, I'm thinking if I would have mentioned that to you, like the whole induced to labor type thing, I don't, I don't think that she would have so readily been like, oh yeah, okay, no problem. I think that she would be more of like, think this through type thing.
mhm.
Let's like, why do you want to do that? Like, why not? So again, for me, that was a little different. And of course, this particular time when I had my baby girl, again, not so much to play the race card per se, but this doctor wasn't, she wasn't black. So, um, I don't know if that stuff like that is a factor, but those are just some of the differences that I encountered with both pregnancies and
Yeah,
like
no,
the
I've heard of some stories where it feels as if, especially with women of color, when it comes to care, there are sometimes the doctors just figure we can handle certain things that,
yeah,
it's sometimes it's an unintentional bias. Some
yeah,
are questionable, but there are some
yeah,
who probably, like, I see where you're coming from is kind of like, would that have been allowed with if
yeah,
another woman of color or a person of color was your doctor, would they have known a little bit more in terms of,
yeah,
how your race played it into,
yeah,
your labor, or are there any other, family history of things that may not
yeah,
have been conducive to an induced labor or not,
yeah,
while as this doctor didn't seem to ask too many questions. But
yeah.
again, we're this doctor's not here to defend themselves,
Right,
and we
right,
don't
right,
know, and it may
right,
not be
right,
that, but
right.
speculation
Yeah,
at best. But it's I'm glad that you mentioned those things to us in terms of what you were thinking as to why maybe that was allowed. But
right.
you both, in the reason why, just so you can clarify, since this is new mommy at 40 and having children later,
Mhm.
was there any reason why you waited to expand your family? Was it because of a relationship change? Because
So
sometimes it's usually like a divorce or something in terms of the
yeah,
in starting a new and wanting to
yeah,
have
because
kids. What was your situation?
I guess just so I remarried when I was 36, and we
Okay,
were pretty much overseas for like the first couple of years when we were married. So I didn't really want to like have a baby overseas per se.
I
So
see.
kind of like so when we came back was I felt a little better
Right. Oh,
getting
okay.
pregnant. I actually did um I did like the second year we were overseas. I I had a miscarriage then. But I had
Oh, I'm
actually flown
sorry.
back. Yeah, I flew back though to see my doctor here. And I don't know if stuff like that played a part in it because I know you really shouldn't be flying or whatever when during a certain when you're pregnant, whatever trimester that is or something. I don't know, but I kind of just didn't trust like where we were. I didn't feel comfortable seeing doctors over there, so I
Yeah.
came back to the U.S. But I ended up having a miscarriage that time, and then when
Mm.
we came back to live, was when I got pregnant, and had my baby girl here. So that was the delay. But even with my son, I mean, I didn't have him until like 4 years after we were married. The first
Enjoyed
time
some
in my first
time.
marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you kind of want to be a little bit more established, I guess. And the
Yeah.
first time was kind of wasn't really planned, but it just kind of happened that way.
Now, with
Um,
the pregnancy with baby girl, was that a pretty seamless pregnancy? How was that pregnancy for you?
yeah, the pregnancy went well enough. Didn't really have any problems in the like I said, even with my like weight, like I'm not, I didn't, because I know some women, I think maybe I don't know to say they become diabetic or
Mm-hmm.
they may start having
Gestational
issues.
diabetes.
Yeah,
Mm.
that wasn't the case. If anything, like oddly enough, she was some stuff I remember, and it's kind of funny because it seems like maybe other people don't think I remember, so they're like, no, no, that's. But anyhow, she was actually a twin when I
Ah,
first got pregnant with her, and like shortly after they said dissolve. So, but but other than that, I mean, no problems or anything. No problems during the pregnancy. Um,
okay.
she was
Now,
fine, and I didn't have any problems.
all right. Now we're ready. I have my seatbelt on for this for this birth story. And let me
uh,
just preface this. If
yeah,
you are sensitive to hearing tales, I want you to stay and listen to learn, but just giving you a heads up so that you can prepare yourself. But just understand that it is a miracle
Hmm.
that Jenese is sitting here talking with us today.
Yeah,
That goes
for
without
sure.
saying. Okay, so tell us about you. Okay, you get to the hospital. What
Yeah.
happens?
You know,
Tell us.
it's
So let's start. Let's labor. Labor. You start laboring.
yeah. The funny thing is, and before we got on this morning, I was talking to my younger sister, and she's like, you know, if if she asks you any questions, if you need to know anything, just call me. She's like, don't hesitate to call me, because the truth of the matter is, there's honestly not too much that I remember. Because of what happened to me. Like, I
Wow.
can't really tell you play by play. I can say, like, I do. It took me a minute to kind of even remember going to the hospital, because I think we went there earlier that morning.
Okay.
And like I say, because it was induced, it wasn't like I was in labor per se. We kind of had to check
True.
in, and
That's
then
right. Right.
they began the process. But other than that, like I can only say I didn't, like, I only wanted my husband and I to be like in the delivery room. I remember I didn't want anyone else to be in the room. Um and the only thing I remember after then really was kind of just waking up and not knowing where I was.
Wow,
Like,
Janice.
yeah, yeah, it was really weird.
So
Um
so tell us what happened.
from what
When you
I
came
heard.
to, what you were you
Yeah.
told, and what you went through.
Uh, I wasn't really told much before leaving the hospital. Like, some things I kind of discovered per se. Like, when I looked, I just remember trying to go to the bathroom when I was like well enough, I guess, um, and could move. I remember trying to just like put my foot out of bed and just go to the bathroom because I had to go. I had that urge. And like I kind of like stepped my foot down. Like, you figure you just get out of bed and go to the bathroom. And so I was so weak when I stepped down. I started like grabbing for everything because I was really about to hit the floor. I think about that commercial, I've fallen and I can't get up
Yeah.
type. My legs, it just felt like jelly. Like, I don't know. I could not, I couldn't. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. And that's what the problem was. I had no, because I had no idea what had happened to me. Um, so I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why I couldn't. Um, but I did eventually. I had to kind of like, the whatever. I guess the IV, the thing that you're hooked up to or whatever. I
Mm-hmm.
kind of had to like walk with that because I couldn't detach myself. I didn't know why I was hooked up to that even, but I kind of had to like walk with that and lean on that to finally make it to the bathroom or whatever. So I go to the bathroom. Um, I kind of just remember like it comes back in like scenes, like episodes per se.
Yeah.
So I remember the bathroom episode. I remember at one point looking down at my stomach. I saw like the bandage over my stomach. So I honestly thought that I had a C-section. Um, which, so I was like, oh, okay. So I remember later one of the doctors had come in, and I remember telling her that oh, no, I think she checked me, and I had actually gone to the bathroom by myself, and I was like, oh my gosh. So, she's kind of like, it's okay, it's okay. I was like, oh, but I thought like I had gone to the bathroom earlier, and she didn't believe me. It was funny. So she like runs to the bathroom because I couldn't figure out like how to take like something with the toilet or whatever. And she's looking at me like, what are you talking like you really went to the bathroom? Like, what? So she goes in, she's like, when did you do that? I was like, I don't know. So um, she she like comes back, and eventually we end up like, the next thing I remember is we kind of end up like talking or whatever. And I mentioned to her something about the C-section, and she's like, no, you didn't have a C-section. I was like, I did. See, I have the cut, because I remember when I was much younger, when I was a child, a cousin of mine had a C-section, and so I remember she had to cut down. So that's kind of why I thought at that point I had a C-section. So she didn't tell me what had happened, but she just kept saying that I didn't have a C-section. Okay, so one of the next things I remember is I woke up and next to my bed was a paper saying something about an abdominal hysterectomy. And so I'm looking at it, it has my name on it, and I'm like, what is going? So I think it was one of the same doctors, but mind you, this wasn't my doctor. I knew she was a doctor because the coat on and everything, but I knew she wasn't like my personal doctor. She was a doctor in the office. You know how there'll be like several doctors in a doctor's office or what have you. She was one of the doctors from that office. She was black. She wasn't my doctor. Um, so so she comes, and I don't know if it was her or if it was another black doctor, because my family's always telling me about, oh, the black doctors were the ones who came to see about you. They were the main ones who had come to see about you, not my doctor, not my personal doctor. So anyhow, she it was either her or another who had come back. I couldn't remember. And so I asked her, I was like, this, I was like, I had a hysterectomy. I'm like, why did y'all take my womb? And she didn't answer me. Um, but I remember, at one point it seemed like maybe she had a clipboard or something in her hand, and it seemed like she was about to cover her eyes, like fighting back tears, like she didn't want me to see her crying. I know, that's what I'm like, what is like, what? I'm like, what happened? So I'm like, I started with questions like, I wanted to know if my baby girl was okay. I'm like, what is going on? And she said she's fine. She's home with her husband. And I'm like, well, why am I still here? I'm trying to figure out what happened, what was going on. I couldn't really get answers at that point. Um, it really wasn't until I got home and my mother-in-law was there to like see about me and the baby. Now, all this time, I never knew what had happened.
You're
Um,
kidding, Janice.
no, I'm not.
Wait,
I'm totally
I'm
not.
sorry.
But
All of this time,
yeah,
no
and I
one
was
in the hospital has told you, and I'm gonna, family included, who's come to see you has not told you exactly what's happened yet?
well. Here's the thing, because I was actually in the hospital. I think they say like maybe 2.5 weeks. I was in the hospital after I had her, and even if they did, because I asked my husband like later on, I'm like, how come? He's like, I did, I did tell you, but
Ah,
because of what had happened to me, my memory was
got it.
just so. Even if people like, there is kind of funny because a friend of ours from I guess she was in town and she had come to visit, and so um something. Oh, I think I saw a picture of me and her together. And I asked my husband, I'm like, Kiki, I called her Kiki D. I was like, he's like, yeah, you were talking to her and everything. I said, what? So I'm like, when did all this happen? Like, where was I? What was going on? And it was so funny because we actually, not long ago, maybe a couple of weekends ago or so, we went to a family member on my husband's side. We went to a funeral and we saw some family there. And they kept saying to me, they were like, oh, it's so good seeing you again. They were like, oh, hugging stuff. And so I say to my husband, I'm like, why do they keep saying it was good to see me? I'm like, I didn't know those people. He was like, no, they came to see you when you were in the hospital. I was like, oh, I know. And then but before, I think I ended up mentioning it to them. I was like, you all keep saying, it's good to see me again. And so my husband's like, oh yeah, you don't remember, you weren't there. And so we all got a good laugh off of it because it's like, we all got it. It's kind of like, I guess, like psychologically, kind of like I wasn't there. It's kind of, it ended up being like we all kind of just laughed about it because because it's like my shell, like my body, like I was there, but I wasn't really there.
You
So
weren't
like all this stuff.
cognitively there. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it's really kind of funny. So I mean I laugh
So
about
you
all this stuff. I have no idea. My mother-in-law, I forget how we got onto it, but she told me a lot about what happened because she was there to watch me and the baby once I did go home. My husband eventually went back to work during the day, so she would be there with us um, during the day. And she told me, but even then, it was. I think about that movie 50 First Dates because I mean she was patient, she was good, but it just seemed like every day I would ask her like, so what happened? Like what? Like
Janice, you're so beautiful as you're telling me this story. Like you're just with such grace and like um I guess
yeah,
this resilience of, you know, and finding it, you know, the laughs in here, which is beautiful because it feels as
yeah,
if in just watching you, the other choice is to cry, but it's just
yeah,
not a choice. Like you've
yeah.
decided it for it not to be a choice. And I
I
think that is a lot of strength that you're showing.
hmm,
But I can't imagine what actually went
hmm,
on. But when you finally were able to
yeah.
process and really get, you know, it stuck, what was it that happened to you in that room?
Hmm. As far as the crying, I will say this, and I think that there was one when I was well enough to even drive because my husband had to kind of he said he like hid the keys from me, so I wouldn't try to drive because that they advised him to not let me drive because I wasn't really mentally. But one time I went ahead and got in the car and I think I just wanted to go to the grocery store, which was down the street from where we lived. But I get in the car and I think like where like if I go there, I might forget how to get back home. And that was the first time that I think I honestly just broke down and cried because I realized how messed up I had become because of what happened to me. And like even to this day, like I use Google Maps to, like faithfully. That's my friend. So, but that was the first time I would say that I really kind of broke down and cried because I realized like I felt like something was wrong with me. It wasn't my fault, but I saw how badly it affected me to the point where I was afraid to even drive down the street. I mean, the grocery store was literally like I could walk to the grocery store, but I was afraid to drive because I was afraid that I would forget to get back how to get back home. So yeah, but my other thing too, as far as not being too emotional about it, was I felt like I couldn't really like cry over something that I didn't really because I didn't really know what happened to me is kind of hard to um like feel the pain for. I think of course like my family was more devastated per se, than because I mean I wasn't there. I didn't know what had happened to me. So it's kind of hard to like cry or be emotional about something and when I don't. And, at some point, I don't know if it's my mother-in-law, like some people have said to me, well, it's kind of like a good thing per se that you don't really remember um, because it was so traumatic. Like, I guess how people who are like in the military and war, they go through the whole, PTSD or whatever, the post-traumatic. So in a way, it's kind of like God shielded me from that per se by not allowing me to know
Yeah.
or remember what had happened to me. So I can't
Whew.
really, yeah, you know. I mean, that's about. I just that's the way I see it. I can't really too much cry over it because I just don't know. There's a lot that I just don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, at first I didn't even really remember having her. You know, when I was in the hospital, I see they put a picture up for me. Um, so I would see her, and it's funny because I was like, I mean, that's a pretty little baby. Not knowing that was like my own little baby. Yeah, it was really crazy. It was really crazy, you know. But like I say,
Wow.
it's just so much that I didn't remember. I asked, and once I did get out, I had to go, um, like the kidney doctor, the neurosurgeon. I had to do physical therapy.
Wait, but
I had,
before we get there,
oh, okay.
we are all in the same cloud that you were in,
Oh,
which is good because you're bringing us.
yeah,
No, 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 it's good because this is what we are living it in your time of going through and literally waking up and like I don't know what happened to me and I think it's good the way you're leading us into this because
mm,
this is all you know.
yeah,
So now your mother-in-law says it and you hear it. What did she
yeah.
say?
I think I mentioned to her the whole C-section thing. And so she just kept saying, you know, you didn't have a C-section. And so I was kind of like, okay, well then, it's like, well, why am I cut? Like what happened? And she's like, oh, Jenese. And they didn't think you were gonna make it. So I'm like, what? Well, apparently, so the delivery went well,
Okay.
and it was after I had her that I wouldn't stop bleeding. I didn't stop bleeding. Um, my mother-in-law has like somewhat of like a nursing background. So she said that she was concerned because they, like my husband and her, like they were all kind of like celebrating. They saw the baby, but she was like, I kept asking, "Where's Jenese? You know, like what is going on? Like where's Jenese?" So she said that was the first moment that she was concerned because I guess they had taken the baby, but um, like I guess immediately they were dealing with me because I wouldn't stop bleeding or something. Okay, so she said that that was her first sign that something was not right, and I guess later this is when they discovered things too. But so I wouldn't stop bleeding, and she told me they had tried several things to stop the bleeding, like to like I guess I don't know if they like pack women or like elevate the legs or like all this kind of stuff. They eventually she said I had to have blood transfusion. She said she saw them taking like all of this blood like I don't know what kind of containers it comes in. To me, from the way she was saying it, it made me think, unfortunately, it made me think about like fruit punch. I remember growing up, we go to the farm store, like so you see like the gallons of like fruit punch. Because she said it was like gallons. I guess they do it by gallons, but I guess blood comes in those little plastic containers, the bags or whatever. So she said, she's like I literally saw them like hauling all this blood like through the hospital. She's like, of course, she didn't know that it was for me at that time, but she said she's like, I saw them hauling all this blood, and so eventually they it got to the point where they were she said they called in the chaplain because they didn't think I was going to make it. They called my parents, and my parents like flew up immediately to see me because at that point they were pretty much like I think she said I had flatlined, and this is the part I have to between her and my sister. I always forget. My younger sister can tell me it was either 3 times or 5 times. They say I flatlined, and they had to resuscitate me, like bring me back. And so yeah, she's telling me all that. Your expression was wrong. I'm like, what? I'm like, but they had to use the jumper cables. Like, I'm thinking, bring me back. Like, what? So she's like, yeah, they had to. So I guess there's this word they use in the hospital, like coded or what have you, because yeah, that's what they say. So coded. Um, and like I said, it was either 3 times or 5 times that happened, and they had to bring me back. So yeah, my parents had come up. She said they came up a couple of times. So they came up one time, and she said the church, like, they called it, they were praying for me. They had called uh everybody, I guess, who would come to pray. She said they had a like a prayer service, like a prayer meeting at my father-in-law's church, I think, because like all these people were involved, and I had like no, because I mean, praying for me, and I just see that's the part that I'll get a little emotional about, because like, like all these people who were praying for me, who were there for me, like I had no idea, but like all this stuff is going on, and I'm just so grateful to God, because I think even back home, because I'm from Florida, and so I think the church I grew up in, my mom said that they were even praying, and I thank God. Once I got a chance to go back home, I just told the church, I'm like, thank you. That you hear that stuff growing up, like, prayer changes things, and you hear about prayer warriors, and people just praying, but it's not until you're in situations which, like man person, man can't do anything for you, when you know that it's nobody but God that um could do what was done. But I did tell my doctor, thank you. Well, actually, he wasn't my doctor, just like the doctor when my mother-in-law was telling me the story. I always hear about the black doctors. So when I did go back into the office, she pointed out to me. She told me who it was, and I remember just going to his office, and I was like, "Can I give you a hug?" He's like, "Hey, hey, yeah." They were all like happy to see me, and he's like, "Yeah." I hug, and I tell him thank you, because she said, she made it a point to tell me that he, the black doctors were the ones who really like fought for my life, who really worked to save me. So I was, yeah,
Wow, Jace.
yeah,
What a
it was,
tale. And so I'm assuming that part of what helped you stop the bleeding is that they decided to
yeah,
remove
yeah. I had to have the hysterectomy. Yeah,
the
that's what stopped the
hysterectomy.
bleeding.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had to. Um, I had to have the hysterectomy to stop the bleeding, and really, I guess I think they had to go to Latif to have him sign off on that, and it was kind of like either we do this or she dies. My husband wanted more children, so for him that was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, of course you want to save your wife, but just knowing that now she'll never be able to have any more children. And so for him, I'm pretty sure that was just, it was devastating to, I guess it's like, I know some people are faced sometimes with, okay, it's either like the baby or the mom type thing.
Yeah,
And,
no,
you want
that's
to be
what
like, save them both, like save
yeah.
them both. So, so
But
I
at
can
this
imagine.
point, you had
Yeah.
already given birth to a beautiful baby girl,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
he's seeing and
Yeah.
having to decide whether to save you and future. I'm sure as much as it's
Yeah.
hard to make that decision and know what that means, I'm
Yeah.
sure at the time
It was a no
you
brainer. Yeah.
yeah, you were
Yeah.
the most important thing. But yes,
Yeah.
there are times where the mom is the one who understand it was given that decision.
Yeah.
If you're cognitive and you're able to, and they
Yeah.
say, okay, we can help you, and you can get
Yeah.
through this. But what that means
But
is,
I know
for,
one or the
for
other.
in the
Yeah.
future, you can't have any more children. That's, it just happened to be now in his hands, which is something that no one ever wants to be fully
Yeah.
responsible for. But in
Yeah.
your situation, it was truly a life or death
Yeah. Yeah.
situation.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it really was, because that was the only way that they could, apparently, that was the only way that they could stop the bleeding. What I didn't know at the time, that there are, I guess, at least a couple of types of hysterectomies. Like, you can have like the full, where they take everything, the uterus and the ovaries, or where,
Or
in my
partial.
case, yeah, they, in which I kind of learned like not too long ago, the doctor, because my husband did ultimately want to have more children, and so I didn't know I still had my ovaries, so you know, I go to the doctor and I'm like, I thought like maybe they had removed them, and you know how they'll like freeze stuff.
Mhm.
I guess so I go to my doctor. I was like, my husband wants to have more children. We of course have to do the surrogate or whatever. So I was like, like, how do we do this? Like, where are my like my eggs
Eggs.
and everything? Yeah.
You got my eggs in that freezer over there? Did you freeze it while you were in there? Tell me I don't have to go through this again. You see that scar? Are you telling me that we got to go back into this in a hospital and do?
That
Tell me
is
you did
so
something
funny.
while you were. I'm not mad at
So
you, Janice.
he's like, so like, he was like, they're in you. Say, I was like, oh my God, what in the world? I'm always, I feel like I'm joking with my doctor these days. I'm like, come on now. Look, just, he was like, no, they're in you. I'm like, what are you talking about? He says, he's like, I didn't take your ovaries. So he's like, really, they're in you. But I mean, unfortunately, I guess, um, they once I did go through that process or whatever, they were disintegrating, I guess, so we couldn't really
Oh,
do the whole in vitro, surrogate mother type thing. But and this was like years after, she was, so it was just a few years later, so it wasn't like right away that this all happened. But
right.
so yeah, so
Well,
by
because now
this time,
you're getting closer to menopausal
yeah,
age and
yeah, and
everything.
that's not even that, but like it started like, okay, because of course I don't have the uterus, so I was pretty much done with that at that point anyway. But yeah, I didn't know about like the whole. I guess the hysterectomy hastened the whole menopause, like just
Right.
even being in that stage, because I just realized even a few years ago the reality of hot flashes. I didn't know what was going on, but I honestly had to do research, like what is wrong with me, and then I had to remember, like, oh yeah, menopause, because of what happened to me. So, I mean, like, for the most part, I feel like I experienced the effects, like the results of what happened to me.
Hmm.
But like, what actually happened was what I can't really, you know, get too or be too emotional about, I guess, because I just don't know. So it's just the results that probably, um, I'd say, affect me the most. I don't know.
What a story. Yeah, and I shout out to your doctor for really advocating on your behalf, and your husband
Yeah,
also and you had such an amazing support system. So want to give a
yeah,
shout out to all the hands that touched you, all those who prayed
yeah.
for you,
Pray for me. Yeah,
and your incredible family. How is baby girl
yeah.
doing?
Oh, she is great. I have her like in the other room. I'm like, you got to keep it down because I'm gonna be in an interview and everything. But I mean, she is super fantastic. That little girl, man, she's really, yeah, she's great.
I'm so
She
happy
is.
she's here. You know what I was
Me
thinking
too.
as you were talking? I'm like, maybe it was divine intervention
Mm,
for you to even do the induction, because everyone
yeah.
was prepared. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah, Yeah. People were in place, that it wasn't just like oh,
Yeah.
like a shock, like, oh, yeah, she's about to have the baby,
Yeah.
and then people
Like
have
if
to.
it had
That's I
just
never thought
been,
about that. Yeah, I
that's
never
how I
thought
was
about
thinking,
that.
this all, who knows?
Yeah,
Obviously, I think, you want to have faith that your medical staff would have been
yeah,
able to work with the situation as is if it was
yeah,
a regular unplanned labor. But the fact that you were
yeah,
induced kind
yeah.
of like put all hands on deck,
That yeah, that's true.
right?
I never thought
That was
about
meant
that.
to be her birth date. That was meant to be her birthday. Mama knows. Even though you had other plans, the
Yeah.
reunion and all that stuff, something, she was like, "No,
Oh
go with
man.
your gut, go with your instinct. Let's do this. Let's do
Wow.
the 26th." And
That's really
I
something.
yeah, I mean,
But yeah,
I
you're right. You're right.
like maybe, but I am so thankful that you have your baby girl. And here's
Yeah.
the thing, I think what's hard is, just because you have this beautiful miracle, and
Hmm.
just because you made it through this horrific situation, does not mean that you you may not have days where you still mourn not being able to have more. You know what I mean? Like, I
Uh,
I I'm
I,
sure there's a part of you,
yeah.
because I'm just going with what you wrote in your initial,
Oh
when
yeah.
we were getting ready
Yeah.
for this.
Yeah. I mean,
It felt
it's
like you really want to do this. Like, there's a part of you that wishes you could do this for your husband because he
yeah.
wants more.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at
That's
the
what I would
same
say.
time,
Yeah.
you
Yeah, I
know,
know. It's really something, because it's kind of funny. Like I'm fine. I'm good. The the combination is it's like
okay.
the boy, the girl. I'm good.
Update, she's
I'm
fine, because
yeah,
in your initial questionnaire, there was
yeah.
kind of like a, not sure, I wish I could, but I'm kind
Yeah,
of
I could, like you
okay.
say, for his sake, for his sake. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the way it would totally be. Like, because she's his only, even though she's not, my only child. She's his only, and he came from a big enough. There were five. He has four siblings. So
Yeah.
his parents had five kids, so he wanted more. And I guess maybe I had written about, I guess, just the extra laws, I mean, for him. And that I mean, yeah, it's like, it's good that we're both here and we're fine. He has his wife, he has his daughter, but
Yeah.
because he wants more, and that's not something that I can do for him.
Right.
That's the loss right there. So
Right.
I mean, and I'm getting a little older. It's like, yeah, I I kind of joke about it, because I'm like, Lord, I don't. I say, speaking of prayer, I'm like, Lord, I don't want to have any more kids. So it's like God has a sense of humor. It's like, okay, no problem, I can fix that. But so
Gives you a
like,
whole new definition of
yeah,
won't he do it, right? Won't. Don't do that though. Don't do that though.
yeah, no, it's like that, right? It's like, I didn't know you're gonna have to go through such drastic measures. It's like, just kidding. But but so yeah, it's kind of funny, because yeah, I'm good, and like I said, like, I'm getting older, and I couldn't even really imagine it. But and I'll say too, my husband's a couple of years. He is a couple of years younger than I am, so for him, I felt, feel kind of bad. I really wanted to be there for him. And so that's why we did seek out the whole, just going through the process of the surrogacy. I feel like I'm grandma's age. Even the girl I got, the daughter I have, she's 7. I'm just like, my son will even be like, man, mommy, you don't beat her half as much as you used to beat me. I'm like, son, I'm tired. Like, I get it. When grandparents are like, go home to your, but that's what I'm feeling. I'm feeling it now. Like, man, I'm just too old, son. I don't know. But
You're
so
not old, tired,
yeah,
but
right.
not old. But you are light. I see nothing but like such beautiful, radiant light in speaking to you. Your
Praise
smile
God. Praise
Your
God.
smile throughout this whole
Yeah.
interview has just warmed my heart, and anyone who
Uh,
gets to see this, like, I,
yeah,
I
praise God.
just I applaud your spirit, and obviously you're
Mm,
not alone. It seems like you have a lot of
yeah.
support and people who have poured into you, but I
Yeah.
suspect it's because you've poured a lot into other people too, and you're just
Um,
receiving what you have
um,
given uh
well, praise
to
God.
others. So um God bless you.
Praise God. Thank
Continue
you.
to,
Thank you.
and we wish
Thank
you
you.
all the best health, and that continue to stay healthy. And
Thank you.
I'm just, your husband is one of the lucky ones to be able
Yeah.
to
To
see
still have us.
both of
Yeah.
you, to still
Yeah.
have both of you. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing your
Thank you
story.
so much. I mean, I hope I was able to address some of the questions, and like I said, I wish I could just the horrifying details of it all. I don't know. I
No,
can't.
no.
It's just because I don't know, or I don't even remember. Just
No, no,
and
no. You did
it's
fine, because
yeah,
ultimately this is real. This can happen to
yeah,
people, and you
yeah,
can't necessarily prepare for it, but I think
yeah.
what you've shown is how you can turn something that might be a little bit post traumatic for someone into
Hmm.
post traumatic growth and
Wow. Yeah.
triumph and post
Yeah.
traumatic thriving.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's that's the moral of the story, is how to
Wow.
thrive in spite of, and you
Yeah.
are an example of that tenfold.
Wow.
Thank you, Jenese.
Praise God. Thank you. Thank you.